Welcome to A Matter of Music. I'm Dawn Wisner-Johnson.
And I'm Beth Wisner-Jahnsen.
And we're partners and sisters, and we are here to help you navigate this crazy business of music with ideas, tools, and education. And this week we have a very special guest with us, a person that we've known for quite a while, and we're excited to have him here. Beth, can you please introduce our guest?
This is Regie Hamm. Say hello, Regie.
Hello, Regie.
I get to do whatever I want. He is I'm just going to give his, his resume bullet point Wikipedia article. My kids looked at your Wikipedia and they were very impressed. Someone with a really long Wikipedia. I'm like, I know.
Right.
Yeah, we can't say it all. It's take analysis. Okay.
So Regie is a 4-time SESAC Songwriter of the Year. Very impressive. He has over 400 cuts, including songs cut by Kenny Loggins, Clay Aiken, Jaci Valasquez, Bob Carlisle, and he wrote one of the top Christian songs, I Surrender All, recorded by Clay Cross. And he was also the winner of the American Idol Songwriting Contest in 2008 with the song Time of My Life, which was recorded by David Cook and has sold over 1.4 million copies. And it went to #1 on the Billboard AC chart. And he also won Nashville Music Awards Song of the Year. So he's done some stuff. He has also written 4 books, or maybe more now. Has thousands of blog readers. He has a 2 weekly Facebook Lives, one with his wife Yolanda, that is incredibly funny. And if you think you need some marriage counseling, I think that's a good one, because they just no, it'll show you that you can love and hate at the same time, as long as you laugh.
How long have you guys been married?
In December, it'll be 29 years.
Awesome. So good for you.
Yeah. Once we hit 30, we're going to date other people.
Okay.
We just decided.
That's what I'm talking about. For marriage advice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly.
May not be your cup of tea, but it works for them.
We are the marital advice that you don't want. We're going to tell you to do all those wrong stuff. So.
But you're still married.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
A lot of us can't say that. So he was also a member of the Ghost Town Troubadours, which I guess they're not doing anything right now because of the thing we do not say. But
exactly.
That is a bunch of Nashville songwriters that tell you the stories behind the songs. And Dawn and I have been to that once or twice, and it's pretty cool. So
it is.
Regie, anything else to add to that? That's an impressive resume.
Well, you've hit most of the high points. I'll probably fill in the gaps as we go. If there are, at the moment, I'm also an artist who's put records. Hang on a second. Speaking of the wife, watch this. Sorry, I'm on a recorded Zoom call. Yeah, she just got home with groceries. So
I'm so excited we get to see her.
We like Reggie.
You can't hear them because I got the buds in, but they're yelling because they're fans. So it's Dawn and Beth.
Yolanda.
Yeah.
Hi, Yolanda.
They're saying hi, Yolanda. Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize she was getting home during this, so you're getting a little sneak peek.
It's all okay.
Into the life.
Yeah.
Into the life. The groceries. Yep.
There we go. Groceries go up.
Doesn't matter what you do or how many awards you got. Life's still life.
Everybody's got to eat. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about how you started writing songs, what instruments you started with, how that happened for you.
Come from a musical family. My grandmother, it goes way back. My grandmother used to sing at the Ryman at gospel night. I'm from Nashville, so a Nashville musical kind of legacy. My father is a great musician. My mother's a great musician. So I was born into this family group. My first memory in life is of being broken down the side of the road in a bus. So if that tells you anything, I started playing drums when I was 5. And I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's cute. No, I was actually playing in church with the band when I was 5. So I was a child, musician, and that's what they called me. Whatever.
Yeah.
but my brother played young too. We all played young, and so we traveled the country and played music. And so I started writing. I started playing the piano when I was 7. Self-taught. I really never had any lessons. I just enjoyed it, and it was something that fascinated me. We had the piano in the house, and I would just sit there and make up songs and stuff. And so really wrote my first kind of complete song when I guess I was 9. And I was off to the races, and I started really writing, really focusing on it when I was like 11 or 12. Got my first song recorded when I was 15.
Wow.
And kind of went on from there. Got my first publishing deal when I was 18. So it was a lot of charmed stuff on my, in my life, but that doesn't mean that it was all, a bed of roses. There was a lot of struggle. And here's the thing about being a child musician that everybody should understand. You're the best child musician in your town when you're 7. When you're 27, you're not anymore. You know what I mean? It's like you're just you're in the mix of all of it. And so unless you become a superstar, nobody cares about any of that. Nobody knows about any of that. It's just something that you just feel like you've been working twice as long as everybody else,
Right.
So I came to Nashville. I dropped out of college when I was 18 and just came to Nashville and decided that this was what I was going to pursue. And even though I'd been doing it.
What were you studying at college?
I was studying music theory.
You were?
So,
okay.
Yeah. And not doing very well in it, by the way, I might add. I was carrying, I think, a solid 2.0 average. And I wasn't even sure that that's what I was going to do with my life. I had been doing it so long, and I thought, I might want to do something else. But realized that really was my passion and my thing, and it was really, for me, it was the difference. It was the choice of playing or writing. And I got to Nashville and realized that I was really a writer more than I was a player. And so started writing songs and kind of never looked back at that point. Once I started really focusing on songwriting, that's when I really kind of found my voice, and that has led to everything. It's opened every door that I've ever walked through. I still play, and I still consider myself a musician, but first and foremost, I consider myself a writer. So.
And I was going to say, through all that, you mentioned, you started young and things kind of changed as you became an adult, but you're, just one of the fish in the pond at that point. But one thing I lived in Nashville for 3 years, and that's when I got to know Regie. And one of the things I remember about you and about everybody kind of in Nashville in the 90s was working.
Yeah.
But you worked all the time. I mean, you focused all the time. And now when things weren't going your way writing songs, you kind of shifted to writing blogs, writing book. I remember sitting in a cafe with you, and you had written something, and Don and I were like on in MySpace or something, and Don and I were like, you've got to write a book, and you're like, I have. You have 4 books. You currently have 4 books in what do they call it?
Development?
Is that true?
So I've actually written 5 books now, and
I only have 2.
And 3 of them are in film development.
Wow.
And one of them is kind of been looked at to possibly be sort of like a Netflix type series, and it's about a songwriter. And that's just talking, right? I mean, we're, there's not any contracts or anything. There are a couple of people talking about it, interested in it. But all of that stuff is just stuff I've done on my own. Like I own all the manuscripts. Like only one of them has been published. So
okay.
I put it all out.
You have it on your Patreon, right?
On Patreon, you can access all of that stuff on Patreon, and then also, I can print physical copies for anybody who wants them, but everything's online these days, so I just provide it that way. But I would say that I'm probably a self-motivator, self-starter, whatever you want to call it. and that's just completely out of an abundance of fear.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that just terror? Like, I've got
just
a wife.
Absolute abject terror. Like, I can't stop. I can't slow down. They're going to catch me, you know, like
The
that.
worst thing, I always tell people, the worst thing for me is when I'm comfortable. If
Oh,
God
absolutely.
blesses me too much, I'm like, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I always feel like there's a sniper out there. You know, I'm the guy just like, you know, doing that all the time. So
it's a crazy way to live, but I really feel like a lot of musicians do feel that way in their
you have to.
careers. Yes, you're constantly, it's the kind of business where you just constantly are chasing the next thing, or trying to figure out what the next thing is going to be. And
well, you know, I'll tell you something interesting about me, and this isn't obviously the case for everybody, but we're talking about my younger life, and I was told when I was 10 that I probably wasn't going to live past 21 or 22. I had really bad rheumatic fever a couple of times, and they thought I had some serious heart damage, and so I pretty early on started getting this mindset of whatever it is I'm going to do in life, I have to hurry up and do it. And so I think I still carry that. I remember vividly, like my 22nd birthday, I was like, felt like I was free, and I got a clean bill of health. But I still had this thing in mind of like, and it's still always back there. Like, man, is this like my last week? Is this my last year? Is this my, you know? And I know that sounds morbid a little bit, and it's kind of morose.
It's motivational.
But it is, yeah. And so I always think, so if I get an idea for something, if I get an idea for a song or a book or whatever it is, I really work hard to try to make it happen, because it's like, I don't want to leave that I don't want to leave that business unfinished. You know, I feel like my grandmother told me something, and it's haunted me, but she says, if you're given the idea, if you're blessed with an idea, then you're responsible for it. It's not only it's not just your blessing, but it's also your burden. That means if you guys have the idea to do this A Matter of Music thing, that's your responsibility. You have to do it. You got to make it happen. So I all of that stuff always swirls around in my head. All of that stuff, and that I think that's why I'm always kind of fidgety and working, and you know, trying to look for the next thing. And sometimes I actually should slow down and listen and be more centered and find more zen. That's actually when the best things happen for me, honestly. But it's not bad to be working. I do, but definitely believe in the work ethic. I think that you have to put the time in, and you have to, you know, you got to be available to it. Let's put it that way.
Right. I think that's such a great quality, and it speaks to why you have accomplished so much. As you know, and we know, there's so many songwriters and very talented people in the world. We've all surrounded ourselves with them over the years, and so there are a lot of people who could really succeed in some ways. But what we tell a lot of, if we're managing somebody or whatever we're doing, that's one of the things, you know, you've got to go for this. It's you. This is on you. If you're not going to do that, somebody else is going to come up and take that spot. So
that's right.
Persistence is important. Networking is important. When you meet somebody and you know, hey, that could be an important person in my life, don't let that go. You know, stick with that person. You know, however you have to, if you email them once a month or whatever you do. So, and I feel Regie, now I know why you're that way, but I've always known that you were, you know, but you were blessed at an early age to have all of these things, even the physical thing that got you.
If you want productive children, then tell them they're going to die. No.
Well, now, Beth, you and I have had these conversations when you lived in Nashville. Your late husband and you and I, we would all hang out. We would have these really interesting conversations. And I'll bet you, Beth, we've talked about this, but this is one thing. You know, you guys know I'm a history buff, and one of the things I also think about too, and I think a lot of people in the new generation are forgetting this, or maybe they never knew it to begin with. But my grandfather this wasn't that long ago, but my grandfather never fully understood what I did. Like, he didn't understand making a living with your brain. Like, he was a brick mason, he was a pastor, and he never quite understood how you could make money with intellectual property.
Something you can't touch.
Exactly. His father worked on the railroad. You don't have to go far enough back to realize that there's very rarely, in fact, maybe never, has there been a world where this kind of a life is even possible. Like 100 years ago, 120 years ago, what we do now, not possible. We would all be doing something really some kind of manual labor that broke our bodies down or whatever. So I look at this time in history and the ability to even do this for a living as this amazing privilege of being born at a certain time in a certain place. You got a lot, you've got freedom, you got people cheering you on, you got people saying, hey, yeah, go for it. You've got all this technology available to you. I just feel like, man, we almost have a responsibility to do this just because our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, they didn't have the ability, that was a privilege they could never even conceive of.
Yeah.
And so I just think there's almost a sacred or a divine responsibility and I know that sounds really spiritual, but in a way it kind of is.
Inspiring me. I gotta go do something.
I know.
I feel like a lazy.
You're allowed. You're allowed to be as spiritual as you want. Yes.
There's a lot of complaining. There's a lot of complaining in the world. A lot of people complain about a lot of things, and it's easy to fall into that. But I just really think if you look at where we are in the light of history right now, it looks like a horrible time to be alive, but it's really not. I mean, can you imagine going through this pandemic without all of this?
I have tried, even in the 50s. Even in the 50s, I said to my kids, imagine if all we had was 3 channels on TV with like 3 shows a day. Imagine if we didn't have cell phones and just,
Absolutely.
I can't even fathom it.
I mean, we have tools to operate, and I think we should use them. And I think we just have a responsibility we've got all of this brain power, all these, I look at these millennials and the Zoomers and all of these kids who are, like my son's 13, I look at these kids, that age, and the brain capacity they have, the way they've been freed up to think about things, like they're not bound by having to go to the well and get water and feed the chickens and all of the stuff that people have had to do for thousands of years. They're just freed up to think. You got a responsibility, man. Let's cure cancer. Let's do something, let's write better songs. I mean, we can do this. We have the freedom to do that. We have a society that allows us to do this. So anyway, I'm very passionate about that part of it too. So I just want to be a part of that.
Everything is an opportunity, even the situation we're all in right now.
Absolutely.
It will shift society, and we have the opportunity, and I like the obligation concept of it, to make this work and shift and say, what can we do better? What weren't we doing well before? It's always an opportunity.
And I wanted to say, we spoke about this earlier, but as soon as this quarantine started, I have been in therapy for depression and different things that for the first time in my life. And I looked at that, and I also have asthma and I have a few things, and I started feeling myself going into that. And I was like, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't know how long it's going to go. And I started going into these music industry Zooms, and I've been in the music industry quite a while, and I've been to the conventions and I've done these things, but I told somebody the other day, you have little groups of people at the conventions standing around talking in their group, but you can't really go in. But in a Zoom, everybody's in there, and over in the chat room, everybody's talking, and it stimulated me. I started meeting more people that way. Beth and I started a free Zoom with some songwriters and people we were meeting, and suddenly I felt invigorated about the music industry again. And I was like, whoa, this is exciting. So for me, it's very
She sucked
true.
me back in. I was out. I was out.
I did what you guys.
And she pulled you back in.
Every time.
But what you guys are talking about is so true. This technology is, you know, for us, and we're the older, a little bit older generation that didn't grow up this way, but it has literally helped me, and I'm seeing a whole new world out there, even after this with the industry. It's exciting to me because I'm talking to people. If I was at a convention, I may have said hello, but probably would not have much of a conversation with, but we're having those conversations now. So I would also encourage anybody who's listening, if you're a musician, if you want to get into any industry, start doing that right now. Go into those places, and you know, there's groups there that are thriving. So, and it's a good place for you, Regie, because I was going to say, I've got his book right there. I'm going to grab it in a minute and show you your blogs. Who's ever listening, you have to go follow him. The blogs. You're brave. That's one thing. You're not afraid to say things that I want to say sometimes, and you just get out there and you do it. And a few of them have gone viral, haven't they?
Yeah, I think I've had about 5 of them go viral.
Yes.
And a lot of them have gotten a lot of shares, but something going truly viral is its own madness. And that I've told people before, if you send me a message or private message to me and say, hey, let's make this thing go viral, let me tell you something, you can't make anything go viral. And because when it does, you can't, and you can't stop it also from going viral.
You can't get rid of it. You got to be careful.
That's why I'm telling you, you got to be very careful about what
What's
you say.
that like, Regie?
If it goes viral, you know.
Yeah. What happens?
What's it like when James Woods comes back to Twitter? The first thing he tweets is your blog.
I'll be honest with you. It is stressful.
Yeah.
You find yourself going there and reading it a lot more times, going, oh my gosh, did I say all this just right? Because these days, every word is parsed because everybody's looking for a reason to cancel you, to come after you. Everybody's got their knives sharpened. And some of the hate mail I've gotten is,
I can't even imagine.
It's some of it's ridiculous.
Which is why so many people don't say anything, and yet you're still.
Well, I think
that's
exactly right. I think I will tell you this: I start everything that I do. This is going to sound so corny, but it's really true. I check myself at the beginning of anything I write, whether it's a song or a blog or a book, and I really do start everything from a place of love. I really believe that's the answer. Really, I know that's, again, corny, but I really do think that's the kind of the secret to humanity and our story and this amazing art piece that is the human story. So I try to start from there. I don't try to come after anybody. I present opinions. I present things that have actually happened to me, observations that I have. I've been very vocal about the fact that I'm a libertarian. I have been since the early 90s. So I come at place from everything from that place, from a place of freedom, free minds, free markets, all of that stuff is where I come from. But I don't hate anybody. So I just want to, so I always check that and make sure, am I putting hate into the world, or am I just asking a legitimate question here? And so when something goes viral, you find yourself really checking that again, making sure, because then you realize you really are making a dent somewhere. People that you don't know thousands of miles away really are reading it. The thing you can get lulled into in this world, as wonderful as it is feeling like nobody's watching, nobody's listening, nobody's reading. They are. And when something goes viral, you really find out how much, it's like, so let me think about it. I think I've had 5 blogs go viral. The first one was the American Idol one, and that was wonderful. And that was just all light and love about the thing that happened to me with American Idol. But I've had a couple go viral that I wrote about Donald Trump, and those weren't so nice.
Oh, I bet you got hate from both sides on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then I've had and then something about the virus when it first happened. That was the one James Woods tweeted, and I got a lot of hate back from that.
Wow.
And I've been dubbed everything from a Satan worshiper to a racist to but you know, everybody now calls everybody a racist. It's like, I don't even know what that word means anymore. You know, it's just
it's replaced stupid. You know,
kind
when
of
you were
has.
12 and you would
Yeah.
call your friends stupid, that's just stupid. It's replaced.
Yeah. It's such a the word packs zero punch. You know, there's no power behind it anymore because it's just been overused.
Well, as
And,
somebody who uses words for a living, I know, you know, that when people use words and don't use them as, you know, they're powerful, whether you want them to be or not, you know, and
well, that is a great lesson for songwriting. I will tell you this, you didn't ask me this, but I'm going to volunteer it. One of the things that I don't know that people think about as much now with pop lyric writing, but one of the things we talk about a lot in Nashville, or we used to at least talk about it, is word power and word pictures and that type of thing, where if you do use a word that is so overused, it suddenly has no power anymore. And there's no punch. And so I always encourage people who are, you know, aspiring songwriters. It's like, you don't have to get into the thesaurus and find words that nobody knows what they mean, but maybe you can take a word and turn it on its head. Maybe you can put it in a place we haven't thought about, or you can use it in a way that we haven't thought about, or maybe you can use a metaphor, or you can use you know, some kind of picture, put some words together in a way that do pack a punch. But we can find ourselves writing in a lot of cliches, and that suddenly just washes over people, and it just has no impact whatsoever. Some people are okay with that in the lyric. I personally like lyrics that kind of reach out and grab you, and at least have some moment in a song. I love to have at least one moment in a song. If you can get more, that's great. But just one moment in a song that just kind of grabs somebody by the neck, you know what I mean? Even if it's fun, even if it's funny, even if it's light, even if it's a dance thing, just some kind of nice little hook that makes you go, oh, you know, that I didn't see that coming, you know.
Well, I'm gonna bring up two songs, and
Okay.
if it's okay with you, we'll cut them in and play a little bit of them and get people maybe to go buy them, because it's 2 of your older songs, because that's, you know, that's when I knew Regie, when my husband and I moved to Nashville in '94. And I did notice that you were SESAC Songwriter of the Year in 95, 96, 97, I think.
Yeah. That's
when Dave and I were in Nashville. I'm just saying, didn't have anything to do with that. You know? Maybe we were good luck.
Since you left, I haven't won it again.
I'm not coming back. So we're Regie did a little group with Rick Elias and Scott Rogness, and they were 3 amazing songwriters. I was at I think it was a GMA after night or NAMM after night at a club, and everybody's talking. There's all these, you know, superstars on stage and people, and nobody's paying attention to whoever's in this club. And all of a sudden you can hear these moments happen when things start to get quiet, and you realize other people in the room are listening to what's happening on stage, and everybody eventually, after about 3 minutes, stops talking. And that was the moment when you 3 came out on stage in this tiny little club, and everybody stopped for 20 minutes and listened to you guys. It was incredible. And Dave, my husband, was lucky enough to be the engineer, so I got to hang out and listen to all this stuff they were doing. And the 2 songs that always jumped out at me. One was Babies, because I still wanted a baby at that time. And I had to leave the studio when you were doing the vocal, and I walked out, and I'm standing on Music Row just weeping. Just crying like a baby. And then the other one, and you can talk about both of these if you want, it's up to you. But the other one is American Dreams, which is still one of my favorite songs. And I remember when Dave and I went down to Mobile to record Somebody, and I had that song, and I drove through Birmingham listening to that. An ebony man from the Ivory Coast is always a lyric that it's just a beautiful picture. Speaking of beautiful pictures, when I think of writing, when I think of, you know, that picture, I know that guy. I
Right.
know that guy that you wrote about, and I'm so bummed I didn't get to meet him in real life. You know, it's like I feel like I know him. And
Yeah,
so,
right?
yeah, I mean, the Irish guy coming to here too, you know, in that same song on the boat. But that guy, I was driving around Birmingham listening to that song over and over again, like, I wonder where his kids are. Like he was real.
He's here somewhere. I know he's here.
Yeah. And I, you know, you got across so amazingly, you know, and I'm an American, you know, we were MKs, we grew up overseas, so we have this different view of America, but the dream of it, the concept of it, you just got that from, you know, these immigrants and these, you know, people in poverty that still have that dream. And it's your wordplay, your rhyme scheme, your everything, just amazing. So if you want to talk about those songs, you can, or
sure.
Well,
sure. Babies was, I wrote that before I was married, and I literally one night a friend of mine was on tour, and I was just hanging out with him. I was just riding the bus for a couple of days, and before a show, we went to the mall to get to the food court or something, and I saw all of these young dads holding purses. And all of these women were coming out, and they were all pregnant. It was like 5 or 6 of them, you know? And I remember I wasn't married at the time. I wasn't even engaged. And I remember thinking, I guess I was 22 or 23. And I remember thinking, why do you do this young? You know, why do these guys get married so young? You know, what's, I mean, that's a young man thing to think, you know what I mean? It's like, I got stuff to do. I don't want to. And anyway, that night in the hotel room after the show, all night long, babies are in my dreams. Never in my life have I ever dreamed. It's just babies everywhere. And I'm like, wow. And I woke up and I literally sang. I was taking a shower, like literally saying, man, I'm dreaming about babies. And I was like, wait a minute, is that something? You know?
Somebody else write
and yeah. So I spent, so I just chased it. I followed that. Okay, what is that? And it's one of those things that's a little bit jarring to some people. I've had people tell me I can't stand that song. It gives me an ice cream headache. I just can't, you know, I can't go there with you. But it's one of those things that, you know, it puts people to a decision. Like, you have to make a decision on this song. You don't get to like let this wash over you and have no opinion about it. I actually like pieces of art like that, movies, books, songs. I like those kind of things. So that was just something that, and all women loved that song from the beginning. It's just, you know,
the men are the ones that hate you.
Yeah, right? Yeah. The guys are always looking at me like, really, dude, you doing this to me right here?
And all the dudes are thinking, write a love song. That's what gets the girls. But no, Regie writes about the babies. And
about the baby, exactly.
Of course. Makes total sense.
Yeah, everybody's always trying to paint that picture of baby, how I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna kiss you, I'm gonna, you know. I know what this all leads to. I know where the logical conclusion of all this for the woman is the baby. You know what I'm saying? That's where they're wanting to get. They don't really care about the guy. Yeah. We're just the means to the end. You
That's how God made us. We're sorry about that, but it is true.
So maybe there was some insight that I had there, but
you get to look at women, but we get to dream about the babies. So.
That's exactly right.
I used to think I had it made. Every time we said goodnight, this little dating game we've played has always seemed to feel alright. I've had my privacy and your heart on a string, and it's never been my style to ruin a good thing. Oh, but lately I've been thinking about a change of plans. Maybe get a couple wedding bands and do something crazy. Maybe get a piece of land and see what's gotten into me, but I've been dreaming about babies. I know it can be hard these days to be a family man. I know that all the experts say you need to live life while you can. I've heard psychology on what makes true love true, and I've read the books with educated points of view. Oh, but lately I've been listening more to Dr. Seuss, reading up on Mother Goose. Seems she's quite a lady, and I've been seeing lots of pink spoons and little bitty tennis shoes, and hearing "Goodnight, Daddy, I love you." Yeah, I've been dreaming about baby. I used to dream of fancy Ford cars, black tie affairs, and how we live in separate condos while we climb the golden stairs. Oh, but lately I've been thinking that it makes more sense to build a house with a picket fence. Forget the Mercedes, get some puppy dogs and training wheels, and a family Oldsmobile. I can't believe just how good it feels to be dreaming about baby. Can't believe just how good it feels. Oh.
I wasn't going to put that on my record, on my debut record, and literally every time I played out, a woman somewhere in the audience who had heard the song would request it. And so finally my manager came to me and said, "You have to put this song on there. You cannot not do this song." And that's the song that got me signed, and that's the song that was my single, and all of this stuff. But it was on the record. It's so funny that we're talking about this, because literally this week I just re-released all of my records digitally.
Yes.
So you can get everything.
Up until yesterday, Regie, you could only get his music through Regie. And I was,
That's right.
man, I was like, this is a great experiment. You go, you do it.
Yeah,
do it.
The guy.
Didn't work.
No. You did it for a long time, man.
I did it. I did it
that.
for years. I really was the lone guy out there going, I'm not giving into all this. But then I realized my son can't find my music. Like if he wants to listen to my music, we have to come down to the office and like pull up files. And so, so I realized that if I want the world to hear any of these songs, I'm going to have to share them with the world. And so I did. But American Dreams was the title of my first record.
Yeah.
And I wrote that song while we were recording for that group with Rick and Scott. I was in the piano room while they were doing guitars in another room, and I just sat down and played I just played that. I don't know where it came from.
He's got a broken wrist.
I know.
Yeah. And I was like, that's something I've never heard myself play before. And I literally had the whole thing kind of mapped out in about 20 minutes. But then the lyric is what took another 6 or 8 months to write. And I, again, had to be real honest about what is it I'm trying to say with this. And it had several titles. It was An American Dream. At one point, it started out being Yankee Dreams, and it was about a guy who lived in New York and wanted to play for the Yankees. And I was like, this isn't going anywhere. And then I
got all the other verses somewhere.
Yeah. And so And then I realized,
talk about a movie or a documentary. You could do it on that song.
yeah. Well, let
mean,
me tell you something. I just conjured this guy, Charlie O'Connelly, in the first verse. I was like, this sounds like Irish to me, sort of. And so I wanted to go down that road. And so Charlie O'Connelly, a mariner's son, followed the Hudson Bay tide, found Ellis Island in 1901. I went to Ellis Island years after this song was recorded and was already written and everything. There was a Charles O'Connelly that came to the United States from Ireland in 1901. He's in the registers. Yes.
What?
Charlie
That's awesome.
exists.
That's
I stood
awesome.
on Ellis Island and just sobbed. I was like,
Oh, Marcus
talking
Jack.
about-
Marcus
yeah.
might be out there.
I know, right?
God.
So I feel like these two guys are friends of mine. You know, I love them. I love singing about them.
Charlie O'Connelly, a mariner's son, followed the Hudson Bay tide and found Ellis Island in 1901 and found him a young Irish bride. He worked in a sweat house for 10 cents a day to pay for the children she bore. Dublin was more than a lifetime away. The pipes weren't calling no more, 'cause he was locked up and tangled in poverty's chains. But a red Celtic river ran hot through his veins. The new world was nothing but factory steam. But Charlie was dreaming American dreams. Old Marcus Jackson in South Birmingham, digging another cold grave. A poor black-skinned orphan of old Uncle Sam, the son of a slave. He makes a small living burying bones of those who don't care for his kind. Surrounded by manicured gray granite stones, but Marcus has life on his mind. And he can feel every rhythm, he can hear every ghost of the ebony men from the Ivory Coast, a long-lost descendant of African kings. But Marcus is dreaming American dreams. Oh, you can play any tune, you can walk on the moon. Yeah, it's all up to you. Any dream can come true. 'Cause this is rock and roll heaven with flight machines. The whole world is dreaming American dreams.
But yeah, the dream is the thing. You know, Steve Harvey said that about the United States. It's like, look, yeah, we got a lot of problems, and you can focus on that, but the dream is the thing. Like, there's no other country on earth where you got a dream attached to it, right? You know,
Right.
and
Right.
that's the thing that I really kind of wanted to pinpoint on American Dreams was that, again, from that place of love, freedom for everybody. Whereas I had a guy kind of take me to task on the song when it first came out, a radio interview, and he said, you know, isn't that a little bit presumptuous to assume that everybody wants to be an American? The way I put it was, in the way I thought about it when I was writing the song, that's not really the point. Everybody wants to have the ability to follow their dreams. That's it.
Yeah.
Whether that happens in America, whether that happens in China, whether that happens in Japan, the core of that, the nugget of that, the kernel of that is what is in everybody's heart. Hey, I would like to have some say in my life here. I would like to have some say in what I end up doing with my life. That is, I think, a universal human principle. I think that's what everybody's going for. It just so happens that this is the country that put that stuff in writing and offers that to people. It doesn't always work, but at least we have this thing we can aspire to, you know, and we're trying to get there.
That's why when you see protesters in Hong Kong, they're waving American flags and singing the national anthem.
They're dreaming American dreams.
To America.
That's
they want
right.
to make their country free is what they want.
That's exactly right.
The freedom.
That's exactly right.
It's an ideal. It's an idea.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what the song is about.
Right.
It's not about amber waves of grain and all that stuff. It's about people and the human heart. And that guy in Birmingham has lived a life that nobody would want, you know, but he's dreaming of something better. He's dreaming that I don't have to dig this grave. Maybe my kids won't have to dig graves. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's the dream, you know?
And you got to that point earlier. We don't. A lot of us don't.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
A lot of us don't because of the sacrifices those people have made for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pushing.
Hey, you spoke about that first record and getting signed. How did that happen for you?
Ooh.
Oh.
Well, I had a pretty good run as a Christian songwriter, 20 number ones in 7 years, made a lot of money in a short amount of time. Again, back to working really hard and just being in every studio I could be in and being on every record I could be on. And about 2001, I just sort of walked away from that and wanted to really focus on being an artist. I'd been in bands. Beth is well aware of all this history.
Yeah.
And finally just kind of came to myself and said, I'm going to just go make the kind of record I want to make. And I spent my own money making this monstrosity of a record, 14 tracks. A couple of them I recorded 2 or 3 times. I mean, it was really, but I again, going back to that thing, I wanted it to sound the way I wanted it to sound. I wanted these songs to be exactly what I wanted them to be. So I can unapologetically, 40 years later, hand it to somebody and say, yep, that's what I wanted to say. That's how I wanted to say it. That's how I wanted it to sound. And so I did that. I had it in hand and I just started shopping it. And Babies was the song that came to the attention of Delilah, a radio promoter. The radio personality. And she started spinning it. She just loved the song. I wasn't even signed yet. And she just started spinning the record. And Universal offered me a deal and based on that. So when I signed the deal, my song was already in the top 20 on the Billboard charts. Yeah, it was really crazy.
That is kind of insane.
Opposite of how it goes, but you had you had a radio personality, a woman that liked the song.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Wow.
Get that book done. Show that book.
Yes, I'm getting the book because now we're going to talk about this. What? Excuse me, everyone.
I don't know why she didn't have the book to begin with.
That's okay. My wife brought groceries in, so you know what I mean?
I can't show you all, but I have a place where I keep all my books that friends have written. Beth's is up there too. Beth has written one, but this.
Oh, nice.
There's Angels and Idols. That's good.
And
called Angels and Idols, and it's
please
kind
go
of
buy this. Reggie, where's the best?
Go buy it
for them to get it.
Probably Amazon. Honestly, Amazon's probably the best place to get it right now.
Okay.
And, they still can fulfill that. The publisher is out of business, but I think you can still get it through Amazon. If you can't,
buy 2, because you can buy one for your friend and buy one for yourself.
Yeah, and I'll give you my all of my links and stuff. If you can't get it through Amazon, just contact me and get it from me. So
okay, perfect. But yeah.
Because Babies is kind of, that's the beginning of that book, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, your life's going great. I finally got a record deal. I got a top 20 song. I'm gonna, go on tour with Cher, right?
Yeah.
And then
Cher and the Goo Goo Dolls, and
and then life happens.
Yeah, big time.
I don't know how much you want. Do you want to go into that aspect?
If you want me to, I'm happy to.
I would love for you to.
Yeah. So everybody listening so far is probably
I'll tell you
thinking
this. Reggie's a sweet and nice guy. He always was, but he's a little, arrogant, little.
Absolutely.
Kidding.
I didn't know she was gonna say
like God took him down a peg. No.
Beth.
Yeah.
Coming from Regie, I'm an artist as well, so I'm gonna say sometimes she thinks we're arrogant, but
no, I think you're all putting on like. Yes. I'm cool. I'm really cool. It comes from most musicians. People don't really realize it unless they know them.
You have to keep telling yourself that. The most
insecure people on the planet. But Regie knew he was a good songwriter.
Yeah.
Obviously 400 cuts. You don't get that without, being a good songwriter. But he's getting everything he ever wants in his life. So he thought. And so Babies climbing the charts. What happened at that point in your life?
Well, I will tell you, Beth, just a quick aside, all of that arrogance is also out of fear too. It's they talk about NFL players when they finally get on the NFL field, they have to sometimes, kind of walk around with their chest out because inside they're afraid of getting killed.
Yep.
It's like, if you don't believe you're King Kong out here, you're going to get run over.
Yep.
And it's kind of the same way. It's like you put on that kind of cockiness or that confidence because you're like, oh my gosh, that dude right there is awesome.
And you're trying to.
I don't think I'm that awesome.
You're trying to self-fulfill that too.
That's
it's
right.
a way of making that happen.
You're trying to manifest.
Right,
absolutely.
Right. It's like it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Yeah.
Well, and so I mean, the story I've told so far, the people listening might think, oh my gosh, everything in this guy's life has gone right, and that isn't obviously the case, that, Beth, but it did look like a trajectory for me that was like, oh my gosh, I'm there, I'm finally to this place that I wanted to be, and I'm finally being recognized for the work I've done, all of that stuff that you think. And March 18th, 2003, American Dreams comes out to critical acclaim. Finally I've got, music critics saying I've made the best record of the new millennium. I mean, we were only 3 years in, but still, it's like, he's the next Elton John, he's the next Jimmy Webb, whatever, pretty heady stuff. You're in that rarefied company, and I'm like, yes, finally they're getting it, And 3 days later, I'm on a plane to China with my wife to adopt our first baby. And we get there and they hand us a child with one of the rarest genetic disorders on the planet. They didn't know it. We didn't know it. And that's when everything started to unravel in an epic way. It just, all of anything that could happen did. I mean, we're talking about this virus. I mean, when we were there, SARS was at its apex. So we've kind of lived through this already. There were already people wearing masks, and this had a 10% mortality rate, which is way higher than COVID. So people were literally, crawling into the hospital and dying, I had all the symptoms while we were over there. So China itself was this very dramatic. I mean, you could do a whole film just on our trip to China. They hand us this little girl who's sick. She's got a fever. She's not doing well. I'm not doing well. For about a week there, we weren't even sure we were going to get out of China. But we get home. She does better with her sort of flu kind of symptoms, but all of the other stuff, like not holding her head up and not eating and not sleeping and not mimicking speech and not holding anything in a pincher grasp, and all of these symptoms we didn't think about while we were there, all of those things start manifesting more acutely. And oh, by the way, my single died. Oh, by the way, all my tour dates canceled. Oh, by the way, I lost my record deal. Oh, by the way, nobody's interested in my songs anymore. Oh, by the way, nobody. I'm suddenly, all of this great stuff that had happened to me suddenly turned on a dime, and I'm sort of persona non grata now. Everything just was the negative image of itself. You know, it's like I couldn't do any, where before I couldn't do anything wrong. Now I can't do anything right. Like I can't seem to write the right song at the right time. I started seeing myself in publications as industry veteran, which you never want that moniker because it's code for he's the older guy. You know, he's the guy.
We gave him a shot.
He was hip about 5 years ago, but
yeah.
And so, but now I've got this mouth to feed, and I've got this child with this disability, and you know, what do we do? And so, we kind of went on this down spiral for the next 5 years of caregiving. And one of the things about my daughter's condition is it's also comes with a sleeping disorder. So they sleep 2 to 3 hours at a time, then they're up for 26, then they sleep for an hour, then they're up for 14, and that went on for 4 years. Like,
and you still have no idea what it is.
No idea what it is. And she didn't sleep through the night for the first 5 years of her life. She didn't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. So that does crazy things to your body when you're taking care of that. So Yolanda and I kind of became shift work caregivers, you know, and our cortisol levels are haywire. Our bodies is going nuts, you know. And I'm trying to work, you know, between all of that and still provide a living. And we're cashing in IRAs, and we're cashing in, you know, all of our savings, and everything just kind of went away because she was kicked off of our private insurance plan. So, you know, I get one bill from Vanderbilt for $87,000. She'd been in a ambulance 4 times.
Wow.
And in the emergency room, she went into seizures, and that's the other seizure disorders part of it. So anyway, this just went on and on and on and on for years, without a diagnosis, and they nobody could really pinpoint it. And finally, a friend of ours looked at her. We were at Starbucks one day, and he was looking at her. He goes, "Have you ever heard of Angelman syndrome?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Man, she acts just like this other friend of mine, son, who has Angelman syndrome." He said, "You got to go look it up." So I mean, we raced back to the house. I'm on the computer. I look it up, and I'm like, "That's it. That's what she's got." And Yolanda's like, "I don't think so." She'd been kind of thrown in the autism spectrum prior to that, but not an official diagnosis. So we went through a battery of genetics tests. And sure enough, she's missing a piece of her 15th maternal chromosome, which is Angelman syndrome. And it's a lifelong diagnosis. There's no cure. It's severe delays, nonverbal. A lot of kids with Angelman syndrome never walk. I don't know of any of them that live independently without a one-on-one caregiver. You know, the expression level is probably a 2 or 3 year old, maybe 2, not quite 3. She's 18 now, so you can imagine, you know, the problems that come with that. But anyway, that experience just changed everything, every tiny complexion of my life, my work, every way imaginable. And I was kind of out of the music business. By 2008, I just was looking for other things to do because I couldn't make it work. I couldn't get songs recorded. I couldn't get my head around it. I still was working. I still was going out and doing gigs. You know, I mean, I was still doing all that stuff we talked about. I was, you know, churning the butter every day, trying to. Yeah, I was still on the hustle, but I was working twice as hard for half the money, and then sometimes 3 times as hard for a third of the money, or none of the money, you know. And so in 2008, my wife and my daughter had gotten into the show American Idol. She loved it, and so in 2008, they had a songwriting competition in tandem with the vocal competition. So Yolanda asked me to enter a song in that. She's like, look, I really want you to do this. I think you could do this. And so I did. I wrote a song that I felt like meant something to me. It really talked about embracing the moment that we're in. And it was really about my daughter and my wife and our newly adopted son, who was bringing really a lot of light into our life. And
how did that songwriting go? Was you said you were working and you were striving? Was that quick? How did that?
Yeah, I wrote it on a Monday. I wrote the whole song on a Monday, and it just spilled out. It might be the easiest song I've ever written.
Wow.
It took no time to write.
Because it's honest and real, and
there you go. And it was, I think I had processed a lot of things through the years that were ready to come out. And so yeah, I think I wrote that song in 2 hours, and the only reason it took 2 hours is because I couldn't stop crying long enough to get the words down. But I just wanted to speak from the heart, and and really I wanted to just finally be done with all of the bitterness that I had about what had happened in my career and what had been done to me and what had not happened for me. All of that stuff. I needed to be done with that. I needed for all of that to be in the past. And the song's called "The Time of My Life." Taste every moment, live it out loud. This is the time I wanted to get back to the place of living in the now, in this moment. And that song was what it was about. That I turned it in with my $10 entry fee in a song contest. I'd been writing songs since I was 9. I never entered a song contest. I didn't even know how to do it. I fortunately did it correctly, and they took the song 42,000 entries, and I won the contest. And
I gotta interject here because Dawn and I knew at that time. Dawn and I knew an editor on American Idol who was also a songwriter, who's now a TV executive, because some people fall ass backwards into a career. So he's an editor on American Idol, and he's like placing music, temp music,
Right.
And I'm like, we're giving him stuff, and I'm like, I want an American Idol song. I want somebody we know that we're working with, and just one of our songwriters that we know, to write an American Idol song so I can get it to him. The end theme, I want that, the "You Just Lost Goodbye" song. And we go on MySpace one day. Dawn and I are on MySpace one day, and you put up a new song, and we listen to it, and I'm like, oh, that's the American Idol song. That's the one. And she's like, text him. I text Reggie. We want that song we know an editor. And he's like, it's actually winning the contest. I'm like, okay, better than my plan, but it was American Idol. You nailed it, man. First time I heard it, I'm like, that's the American Idol song.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, it was. I didn't know what it would do, and I honestly didn't care. I just did it at my wife's behest, and I really wanted to just be honest with it. And within the confines of what they had asked for as a song. They had on their website what they wanted, the marks that they wanted it to hit, all the beats they wanted it to hit, and all that. One of the things I did technically on that, and I'll give you a little inside info, and this was probably the result of knowing about the songwriting business for years. And by the way, I was completely eligible for the contest. The only rule was that you couldn't be currently published, and I wasn't at the time. I was completely not. I was out of every deal that I'd ever been in, and that was the only reason I was eligible to write that. So, but they said when people went to vote for the song that they're going to have to listen to 30 seconds of it before they can vote. And I was listening to these songs that had these 15, 20-second intros, and I was like, man, let's get to this. So I put a 4-second intro on mine, which they ended up using for the record. They ended up completely copying the demo, but there was an intro on it. I just cut it right. I just cut it right on the 4. It was like, all it is it hits a C, and then it goes, and I did that for the contest because I knew if they're going to listen to 30 seconds, I want them to hear at least the whole verse and maybe part of the chorus. I think you get into the chorus at like 32 seconds or something like that. And so just that technical thing, I think, gave me a leg up, because some of those songs you're having to sit there and sit through 15, 20 seconds of intro because somebody's like, man, you got to hear this great guitar lick. It's like, that's not really, that isn't getting you anywhere.
Right.
So I feel like that gave me some.
That helped at least people to give it a chance.
Yeah.
I won't listen to 15 seconds of an intro most of the time.
We tell people that about music supervisors and music supervision. Your intro has to be short.
Right.
Music supervisors do not listen even never 30 seconds. And
they don't have time to.
Man. No.
Yeah.
So you got to get to it. But
I kind of like that that was one of the unique things about the song. But I thought it was an interesting choice. But it's interesting to hear that's why you did it that way.
Right.
Yeah,
the
choice was made out of pragmatism, but they ended up using
rules.
That's right. That's right. Finally, I read a contract. Finally, after my whole life, I finally read one. So
it paid off. It paid off reading that contract.
Yeah. So so the song ended up being like a worldwide smash, the biggest song of my career, 16-week #1, and really relaunched my life in a way. And so I wrote that blog about it, when they used it to close the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games, which was a place my wife and I had intended to take Isabella back to. But obviously there's no way we could go back for that. But the song that I had written was there, at the games. 1 billion people listened to it.
It gives me the chills.
Yeah. Me too.
Look, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Read the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when that happened, I wrote my manager was like, dude, you got to tell somebody this is a great story. So I wrote this blog called Full Circle. I put it up on MySpace at the time, and it just went insane. Like, I couldn't keep up with it. It was like, there was something you could enable to hear clicks, and it was like, it was like that all day, for like 10 days. And so I was getting all kinds of really amazing emails and responses, and I couldn't even get to them all. But a book publisher contacted me and said, we would love to see this in book form. Do you think you could do it? And I said, let me write 3 chapters, because there's a backstory you don't know about. Let me write 3 chapters and see what you think. And I wrote the first 3 chapters of Angels and Idols, sent it to them. They were like, if the rest of it's going to be like this, you do it. So no ghostwriter on that. I wrote every word myself, went through the editing process, and really fell in love with that medium, fell in love with that art form of book writing. I never really thought that I could do something like that. And that really changed everything for me. And that's when I started thinking about writing books and being more earnest about the blog and taking that part of myself seriously. And I will tell you, all of the years, I've told several songwriter friends of mine this, and maybe this will help people watching, but all of my years of really rigorous lyric writing and really focusing on the craft and really understanding word power and word efficiency, and no wasted words, and how to hit the beats, how to set them up and knock them down, so to speak. All of that really helped me in the writing process, because it's the same goal. You're trying to keep people listening. You're trying to keep people reading. You're trying to keep people watching. And that art form is translatable from a lyric, I think, to narrative. And so I love that process a lot. I really enjoy book writing. I haven't written a book in about 2 years, but I'm working on one now. And I could see a world where that's what I do, because when I was just focused on writing, I mean, the day was like, I'd start about 10, I'd write till about 1, I would take a lunch, go take a walk, write till about 6. I loved that day. Like that's a great day for me. Like, I enjoy that process. But yeah, that opened up just a whole new thing. And then that has led into film to some degree. All of those, I wrote a Christmas book. I wrote another book called 8 Rules. Those have all three been optioned at some point to be films. They're all sort of in process right now. They're all out of option, but we're still in talks with other people to get them made. So
Nice.
We'll see.
Made. I personally, I hope it's Angels and Idols myself.
Well,
yeah, me too.
Who do you want to? I have a question. Who do you want to play you in the movie, and who does Yolanda, more importantly, want to play her in the movie?
We've had so many discussions about that. We've had to go on IMDb pages and look at the consensus for me. I don't know if we could get him, but the consensus for me seems to be Chris Pratt, and the consensus for Yolanda seems to be Anne Hathaway. So, but we also know that by the time this thing gets made, who knows who the young hot. Right. The people have to be between 30 and 35 versions of us. That's when all that stuff happens. So who knows?
So you're still alive to see it.
Oh my gosh. Beth, I can't tell you how many times I've thought this is going to get made after I'm dead. I know that I'm not going to ever get a chance to see it, but it's been a 9-year process. We're in year 9.
I remember a post you said one time, I think I see myself in one of the rewrites, like, they've rewritten it, reworked it,
yeah.
We all see how, the Hollywood version of how they do that, but
right.
Is it still your story?
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I would say it's 60% true.
Okay.
We've had to put some composite characters together. We've had to move timelines around. Nobody's life is like a movie,
Right.
I mean,
right.
You just have a great day here and a horrible day here. None of it is the arc, is the dramatic arc.
Moses was the last one, and that was
he was the only one, exactly. But he wrote that book. Who knows? You know what I mean? He could have
who knows what he gets in the editing?
Let's leave out the Thursday. Yeah, Thursday was uneventful. But yes, so it's about 60 to 70%. As the script is now, I don't know
what'll end up.
The script, I don't know what it'll end up being, but yeah.
Well, based on how your life has gone, I mean, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen for you. And if it's Angels and Idols first, I feel like after that you'll do more of it, and those other ones will get done. So I believe in that. But so thank you for sharing that story. It's kind of amazing how your life has taken just you all the different places, and you've just kept moving, and it's very exciting, actually.
He's adaptable. He's very adaptable.
Yes, and to see the changes and what you just said about songwriting moving into books, that's really amazing. One thing we didn't ask you about, and I want to make sure I get it in, because you had publishing deals. You were a writer.
Yeah.
Thrown in rooms in Nashville, these kinds of things. Can you explain a little bit how that happened for you? Did you like it? Did you not? Did it help you?
What was that like back in the 90s?
Yeah, what was that like?
How did that work?
Yeah, so the way publishing deal, I'll give you the nickel tour of what publishing used to be and what it is now. Back when they sold records, there were 3 revenue streams. There was licensing, film and television licensing. There was mechanical royalties, and then performance royalties.
Right.
Performance is radio. Mechanicals is sales. Licensing is obviously film and television. Now that there are no more record sales and it's all digital and online, mechanicals are gone. So the only 2 revenue streams you really have are licensing and radio. And radio is kind of becoming obsolete as well. Nobody listens to the radio. So back in the day, the way they would write your publishing deal is that you were they would advance you money, and then you would recoup that money basically on mechanicals, on sales. So let's make it we'll make it even numbers and make it easy to follow. Let's say someone signs you for $30,000 a year. They're going to advance you $30,000 a year on a 3-year contract. That means that $90,000 has to come back to them to recoup that before you start getting the money on top of that. The only revenue stream they used to attach to that was mechanicals. So record sales. So if you had one song on one platinum record in that 3-year period, that would make all that money back. That's all you had to do.
And how many songs would they request of you for that kind of money for a year?
12 songs a year, 12 to 15 songs a year, 100% copyrights. In other words, if you co-wrote, that counts as a half a song. If you wrote with 2 other people, that's a third of a song. So 12 complete copyrights a year is what they would, that was standard. Sometimes I think I had a couple of years where I think I had to write 15 songs a year, something like that. Some people, you know, were ambitious and would write 18 songs a year, 20, whatever. But
where are those songs? Where are those songs now?
Well, they all they reside in those companies that I wrote. Yeah.
Okay.
That I wrote them for. But so that was the way publishing deals worked. And if you were getting songs on multiple platinum records a year, then that advance could be huge. I mean, so when I left Christian music, I think one year I was the highest paid Christian songwriter in the business, because I had so many songs on so many platinum records. So, you know, I was a 6-figure a year, just songwriter. Not that wasn't production, that wasn't artistry, that wasn't all the other stuff. That was just to write songs. And it was just on that one revenue stream of sales. That is now gone. We don't even know how to calculate sales anymore because everything's streaming, and so music is essentially rented now. It's not purchased, it's rented. You rent the service, you rent Spotify, you rent Apple Music, whatever. And there is really no mechanism for songwriters to figure out how that money trickles into you. So your revenue streams now are licensing, film and television, and radio. So look, if you're writing a radio hit every 2 years, you're going to be all right. It's very hard to do that. It's very hard. And almost none of it has anything to do with your talent. Everybody's talented. Everybody's gifted. That just is about like who you're hanging out with, and if you're writing for the right artist at the right time, and you know, and you could be writing
more about who you know at that point than.
That's right. That's right.
And some of these songs have 8 songwriters sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it used to be if somebody came in and on your production and did a guitar solo for you, it was a guitar solo and you paid them and they left. Now they're a songwriter.
Yeah, there's a lot of people have kind of wanted to get into the revenue stream of writing, and I don't know. I don't want to make any judgments, but I just don't know how many of those people are legitimately there. You know, if like you said, Beth, if you go in and you play bass on something and you come up with the bass parts, that is kind of under your job description as hired bass player. That's the way I look at it. Right. I don't know that there's songwriting credit to be gotten for that, unless you come up with something that's just so recognizable and it's so integral to the song that the song doesn't live without it. But, you know, I don't know. I have a personal policy that once there are 4 songwriters, once a 5th shows up, I back out. I'm not doing 5-way splits.
Good for you.
Just because it's just a nightmare it's an administrative nightmare, you know?
True.
That's what I do for a living.
That's what Dawn does. And she does it for a songwriter that has, how many is, he's one of these guys that anybody that's in the room,
they get a piece.
They all come after it. And so we're constantly emailing back and forth with management and record you know, it's a constant thing to find those final percentages.
Which is why before you leave the room, you sign the split sheet. Sign it. Do it.
That's right.
Do it.
So it is. So Dawn, you know, it is an administrative nightmare because you live that nightmare, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So
as a #1 right now in Europe, and somebody did a cover, and we're adding people in for the cover.
Really? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well,
those were the golden days for you.
Yes, those are. Absolutely.
Times.
But I will tell you. So you asked me, did I enjoy it? sometimes I did, and sometimes I didn't. I've always had a very love-hate relationship with co-writing. I if I had good chemistry with the co-writer, I loved it, and it was really more about the hang than anything else. Just the fact that Rick Elias, a friend of ours who passed away last year, I loved writing with Rick because I loved being around Rick. That was it.
Yeah.
And we kind of breathed songs together. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like
for you guys. It was just
right.
worked. Yeah.
And I've had some co-writing relationships where it was that way, where it was just like we just go in and there's a song and it works and we all kind of speak each other's language. And then I've had some where it's you're in there just slugging it out all day trying to get a verse, and
because
you're
record companies would sometimes put you together with other songwriters that you don't know, right?
Oh, all the time, yeah. Well, and your publisher, you know, in Nashville, it's very much about collaboration. And I've always been the black sheep here because I write so much by myself, and Nashville kind of relies on the collaboration to do the marketing. Like if you've got two songwriters working a song, you've got twice as much, and two publishers, you know, you've got twice as much of a chance of it getting cut. Well, you got this song with one songwriter on it, you're, you know, running around town and who's gonna cut that. So, but I will say the biggest song I ever wrote, I wrote by myself. So, you know.
Good. But thanks for explaining that, because a lot of people aren't really sure how that all goes down and how that works. But yeah, Nashville is definitely, are they still that town in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. I got out of my last publishing deal that I did a deal in 2014, got out of it in 2018, early 2018. That last deal that I did, I felt a little bit like a fish out of water. I didn't enjoy that process. And the main reason is because the industry doesn't know, or at least hadn't at that point kind of figured out what it is and where the money is. And there aren't any mechanicals. So where do we recoup from? Do we recoup from, you know, where? And so just the business itself is trying to figure itself out. And so that makes it kind of a high pressure. Everything's got to be a hit. Everything's got to be on the radio. Everything's got to be in a movie or television. You know, like you can't. There just aren't any more B-sides. Like we can't afford that anymore. You know.
Right.
So I don't know
songwriters,
how these kids.
Yeah, I don't. Several of the songwriters I know, my son being one of them, he already writes for television, but that's all he's doing is writing something that will work on TV. And it's paying his bills. So he's not the artist anymore. So many songwriters are having to change their, you know, which, as you know, you did that over the years. It's a business, and you've got to
constant adaptation.
Right.
Yeah, which is totally fine. I mean, I watch these shows and I know for a fact so you'll hear something, you'll hear a cue, and it sounds like that sounds like that was a hit song, but you know that it's probably 30 seconds of music that somebody just went, you know, I'm running to you, I'm running to you. And that's all the song is, but it sounds like it's going to set that scene up great. You know what I mean? It's like there's no song probably. I think about that all the time. I'm like, I'll bet there's no rest of that song. I'll bet that's just about that much, you know, and it sounds like that would have, oh yeah, I think that sounds like I heard that on the radio, but maybe you did, maybe you didn't, you know.
Right.
But it's a completely different mindset when you're writing something like that. You're writing for the vehicle of visual, you're writing for thematically, you know, you know the ideas. If you work in television, you know the ideas you're gonna try from one scene to the next kind of a thing. It's definitely.
And we do definitely still have artists that are writing, as I just said, but they're specific. They know what works in television, and they will release their albums, but they all work. And there's a few styles that are really working. So those artists, you know, are doing really well. But then you have the music library stuff, like you just talked about, that is going to go somewhere, and they know what's needed. And so lyrically, they'll write those little cues. So yeah, you know, you just, as I said, you just got to kind of follow it if you want to keep working. And
That's right.
Yeah. And you have done that very well, my friend. And I was going to say, when you were talking about Time of My Life, everybody just can't cue into the emotion of people. And you have that gift.
Well,
You definitely do. Yesterday I was listening to your live, Facebook Live, and you start playing and start singing, and you could sing the phone book. And you can get into my psyche, you know, and I mean, I love the lyrics, and I'm glad that you're a great lyricist as well, but
thank you.
You know what I mean? Some guys just have that way of, they know how to get that emotion across. And I think part of the reason is you've been doing it since you were 5. You were in church settings, and we've talked about to a lot of songwriters, and many times they come from these backgrounds because, you know, we all know about being in church. We've heard all the music there, and, you know, Beth and I were listening to the quartets when we were young, and Andre Crouch, and
you did Andre Crouch thing. I was just listening to that the other day.
Absolutely,
Dave, and he did a cut on my tribute album.
Oh, awesome.
I did. That's right.
Got nominated for a Grammy, I think.
Andre was a big influence in my life. What a great songwriter.
No kidding.
Classic songwriter.
Gifts from God.
Yes, absolutely.
He was the same way. He would just start playing and you would just like melt. It's like how but he was self-taught and basically, I think, God taught.
No doubt.
Literally one of those people that God dropped something into and just said, here, this is, like your grandmother said, here's a gift. What are you going to do?
That's right. It's your responsibility now. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you have any questions, Beth, but I don't want people to forget that Reggie's music is up. It's on iTunes.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's on iTunes. I don't want to say those streaming places because I don't like them.
Okay.
Well, you know what? But it's there.
I want people to go buy it, but it is there if you want to listen.
How many albums are there?
Say the name, but it rhymes with Monomai.
On Monomai, that other name.
Yeah. Do you have 5 albums, 6
and
albums?
And Glenn Sora. 6 albums are, so 5 albums are up. 3, there's American Dreams, Set It on Fire, and On an Island are the 3 kind of studio records. A Christmas record will be coming up in the fall.
Awesome.
Then I also have 2 kind of interesting records called Near Misses, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
These
are songs
this.
I wrote for artists that did not record the songs. So I've got versions of them that I've given to like Kickstarter people and Patreon people. If you become a patron, you can access it. But where I explain who I wrote it for, how it came about, how it got passed on, and all that. But we've been doing this thing on my little group page, my fan music page, where people are trying to guess which song I wrote for which artist. So
how fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that in your Patreon page then?
Patreon, you can actually hear all of that in Patreon.
Right.
I've got all of my music is there at the Patreon page. Also, all the books I've written are there.
Okay.
For certain tiers, I think the 2nd and 3rd tier, you can access everything I've ever done. If you just become like a entry level member, you get to blog every day, some behind the scenes stuff, but you can go up in tiers.
I want people to hear that he blogs every single day.
Every day. There's a blog every day.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
And but yeah, so the music is up on Apple Music, iTunes. It's still in some of it's still in process. I've had to change a couple of things. I had to take American Dreams down and and put it back up with the proper original release date, stuff like that. I'm going through some of that process now, but in the next week, it'll all be up there. You can access it
by the time we
everywhere.
put this up.
By the time we get this one up, yes.
Awesome.
It'll all be there.
And you've got that Tin Angel stuff too. I don't know if you have all the rights to that, but
I've got it sitting right over there. Thank you for that, by the way.
You need to tell your wife though, if she messages me on Facebook, don't say Regie had a heart attack. Because I open up a message, it says Regie had a heart attack, and I'm like,
oh my gosh.
And then
Sorry
she goes,
about that.
when I showed him the picture of, I'm like, oh Lord, Lord. I posted a picture.
Backstory to this, Beth's
I posted a picture of
husband.
dates that my husband had, Kevin
Yeah.
Gilbert and Tin Angel and just Almost Ugly Dawn's
Yeah.
Band, just all these dates that I keep out of the garage. I keep them under my bed because I don't want them to get ruined. And I have Bob Carlisle's, I got all this stuff and I'm like, I don't want it.
Right.
I want to get it back to people. Please somebody take it. So I posted a picture.
For people who don't know, your husband, Beth's husband, worked on several huge records before he left Nashville. And what the funny part was, none of us knew they were big records at the time. You know what I mean? It's like we didn't know we were working on these multi-platinum records. They were just getting made, but he was great. Oh my gosh, I loved him so much.
And he was good at keeping everything.
Yes,
and
he was so meticulous. Yes.
Right. So
yeah, I don't know if that's ever coming up.
Dave, but we're all thankful.
I've got it on my computer. I can listen to it whenever I want. So
I've got most of the Tin Angel stuff on my computer, but I love having the original DATs, and they will. I have a vault, and they will go in my vault.
okay, good. I'm glad they got to where they're supposed to be.
Can I say that one of the things I'm looking forward to in heaven, because Rick is there now. We have other friends who've gone, Tim Chandler, Dave. Anyway, I'm going to be in the avenue wherever all of you guys are.
That's a request.
That's not an okay for you to leave here yet, Reggie, but
no,
anyway.
I hear you.
Yes, stick around, but someday,
Look both ways when you leave your driveway on your bicycle.
Lesson learned there. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have anything else, Beth, or are we?
No, he covered a lot.
I know, Reggie.
Fun.
This was wonderful. We've been here a while, but it doesn't feel like it.
No.
Which is why everybody needs to tune into all the things that Reggie's doing, because there's a lot there. There's a lot.
He's got his Patreon. He's got Facebook Lives. Yes. He does Thursdays and Sundays Saturdays with his wife, which is fun. He's got a new Facebook page for Regie Hamm Music. So go find him. We'll put all the links below and all the links to all of his music, and it's definitely worth your time. And you probably haven't heard it because it hasn't been available up till now. So
see, there you go.
Yeah, and maybe sometime in the future we'll have Reggie in to really go over some songwriting technique, because he's
teach you something.
He's a master. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And
thank you very much, Reggie. We appreciate it.
Yes,
my pleasure.
Any parting words to our?
Just no, I just work. I think the thing that we talked about through this whole thing is really just go to work. Just go to work every day. And I mean, you don't want to think about it as a drudgery. It's not a drudgery, but it's like this privilege that you get to work in this world. Even if you're not making a living at it, you still get to do it. There aren't any excuses left. We've all got phones. We've all got cameras on them. Sit down with your guitar, your piano, your drum machine, whatever, and start doing it,
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that people can do that, and I love what people create. I think I'm kind of a fan of humanity. I think, I love watching people's creativity come to life, and especially when it comes to music. And so just keep doing it.
Yes. Great. That's great advice. We thank you for joining us today at A Matter of Music. You can find us at amatterofmusic.com as well. And we're so excited to have had Reggie here today. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
We are signing off and saying, join us next time.